Hello and welcome everyone, XD8 right over here. I hope you guys are doing great. In this video I'm going to explain why there was a big delay in the release of SHM mod. Let's start with what we know. Stock SHM is installed as a system application on our watches. We had no issues even though it's installed as a system application on One UI 5 and the previous One UI as well. And patching the watch SHM was not really hectic. So what really happened with the new release of SHM on UI 6 132.025 or the previous 2.3? Let's start by looking at the previous release. So right over here I'm looking at the previous release, comparing the stock and mod. Right, so when we expand and look, we have paths. They're kind of like straightforward. You can literally see and you can read and know where you're going and what you're seeing. For example, I can see CSS util, I can see the control of the BP, I can see the controller, I can see, it's readable. It's very organized, as you can see. Now I'm gonna take you to the new SHM. So basically when they release it, I would start to compare the previous release with the new release, and which in this case we have this. Now when I first observed Smiley classes 2, I said that's fine, not a big deal. If the code starts to grow bigger, then the decompiling is going to split them into two folders, not a big deal. But the big shock is when I expanded. As you can see, we've got those file names, alphabetical and with numeric and all. This is known as diff package. It's a way where developers would use this tool on, for example, Android Studio while development. It makes things much easier in development. It's like a Lisp. You can read about it, you can search about diff package and understand it. But it's a pain for anyone who wants to patch. If I'm going to open one example, well, that's a bad example. So we have, for example, these constructor LA8 is calling A and B and C, which is itself. That's another poor example. Let me find you a good example. Let's have a look. All right, BK. So we have function called C. We go a bit down and we have, well, that's pretty much it. That's function called C. It's the BP recalibration tile view. Right, so if you look right over here, it's pretty much not very straightforward. Like, for example, it's initializing a component called JY1 and it's calling LCY1 and so on. So what does that mean? Okay, since the code is obscured, I will be dealing with what was, or what once was. Like, for example, we've seen in the previous version, we could literally read these, and what I just showed you right now, if I go into BP view, where is it? UI tile, and here we go. BP recalibration, where is the there it is. BP recalibration tile. Now this is what we have just seen right now. Where is the BK? There it is. BP recalibration tile view and BP recalibration tile view. Now if you look closely right over here, you can literally understand there's a constructor, there's an axis, get resource version. You can read it, you can understand, you can see what is happening and what each component is calling from where and what. Right? So I have spent probably 2 to 3 weeks. This was the first obstacle. I spent 2 to 3 weeks trying to map methods and I succeeded. I managed to link everything from the previous version to the new version, exactly what I need to patch. I wrote it down and I was like, okay, great, I have done it. I have mapped and I have put a description for everything that I have. So that's superb. Right, I tried to apply my patch. I finished applying all the patches that I want. I installed the patched SHM, and I ran it on my One UI 5 watch. I was really happy. Everything is working. I started and I launched the beta test, but UI 6 users who have obtained the new Watch Ultra or Watch 7 basically, they reported the app is crashing. And this was kind of the disappointment, a big depressing moment. It was a setback. I was absolutely not happy, and I started to dig into logs for about maybe a week or two. I tried to fix few things according to the logs. And by the way, big shout out to all beta testers on my Telegram group. You guys are great. You really help a lot. Seriously, I really thank all beta testers in my Telegram community. Because of them testing everything, they ensure that when I release such a mod, there are no issues. So beta testing ensures a stable release. So again, thank you. With that being said, so I've been digging into logs and trying to fix a lot of things. But there is one particular issue that was not being fixed. IRN, or irregular heart rhythm notification, and sleep apnea both are still not working on One UI 6. And I have reached to the point of not knowing what the hell is happening. What is so different between One UI 6 and One UI 5? And I tried to find the differences. So what I started to look at, for example, I look at the manifest. I wanted to go and look at all of these things. One of the key factors and key differences between the previous release and the apnea release for the stock SHM is the code written. Now I have observed that they have been using deprecated methods, which was kind of a question mark. Why would they use an old code instead of using the new code? I mean, one of the examples I could give you is that they're using Notification Builder to create the notifications, and if you read the description right over here, it says that it's as old as API level 4. Now our watch is probably 31 plus. Right now even One UI is running on 33 and One UI 6 is running on 34, so we don't really need to go all the way back to something like that. We can just go with the notification compat, which is what was the previous release using, a notification compat. It is as if they have rolled back, and now this is not a critique. If they're using the deprecated methods because they're trying to rework the new code in order to have a better experience, sure, why not? Let's use deprecated code as a temporary solution. The other thing is, when I'm looking at the manifest earlier, I just didn't tell you. Let's have a look and see the IRN service. So this is not IRN. Just scroll a little bit down. Here we go. You could literally see that the service, we have a foreground service type. In here they declared as location. In here they have declared nothing. In Android 14, according to Google documentation, foreground services must have a type, which is right over here. There is no type. If I take you right over here, so this is the foreground service. So as you can see, beginning with Android 14, you must declare an appropriate service type for each foreground service. And there are foreground services. I've seen there is health, there is short service and everything, but that's not the case right over here. They didn't declare it as health. They didn't declare short service. They didn't declare anything. And that's the same case for apnea. So if I scroll a bit down and try to find apnea, if I can just find it without searching, that would be great, but I think I'll end up searching for apnea. Oh, there it is. Good. Foreground service type is unknown for the apnea service. The application would probably crash if I would try to run the application without a foreground service. Now, let me remind you, the stock SHM is installed as a system application. It can easily bypass all violations like they are nothing. But when I install, or for example, I patch the SHM and then install it, it will be installed as a user application. and that will cause the application to crash. What did I do? I simply lowered the target SDK from 34 to 33. So in other words, instead of making the application target Android 14, I made it target Android 13. If you look right over here, you can see that I lowered the SDK target from 34 to 33. This solves one part of the problem, but it does not solve the issue that Apnea and IRN still not working at all. And this is where I reach the end of testing, and I have announced on my Telegram, XDA, and everywhere I'm not going to be releasing SHM-Mod anytime soon, and that it will probably be delayed till September. It was kind of a sad day for me, big time, because a lot of you were looking forward to this release and I just couldn't patch or fix it. Few days later, 2 Telegram members, which I believe are from the Chinese community, and yeah, shout out to the Chinese community from Cool APK. They have helped me a bit in the past with the SHM-Mod. And right now, the 2 members that helped are Ribrith57 and Flyfish233. They have fiddled with the last SHM-Mod beta that I released, which probably was beta 6, and they tried to see why it doesn't work on One UI 6. It turns out that the battery optimization on the One UI 6 or Android 14 has become even more strict. It's more loose for system application but harsh on normal application. So the solution was to whitelist SHM-Mod. According to their test, that was the only thing left to do for SHM-Mod to work. Doing that allowed Apnea and IRN to run without any issues, and this is where I started my round 2 of patching. Round 2, fight. And I started working on many things. One of the things I wanted to fix is the permissions. When I installed SHM-Mod and I denied all permissions, I wanted to see if SHM-Mod would run. The app was always crashing. So I thought about it and said, hey, what if someone installs SHM-Mod first time and it crashes? How to solve this? I can't tell the user, hey, you need to open settings, app list, and then go to SHM-Mod, check permissions, and grant it all. So I've taken this into my own hand. Check permissions before calling any permission related methods, so the app doesn't crash. And with that being done, it fixed one part. The next part is to whitelist. Now unfortunately, whitelisting, there is no interface for battery optimization on the Wear OS to whitelist the app. It has to be done through ADB. So what I did is I have pushed the layout into SHM-Mod. So let me just go right over here. I'm the right place, yes. So I went into layout and you'll see battery optimization error. If I scroll a bit down, and you'll see a bit right over here says like battery optimization is on, run the following ADB command, yada yada yada. After that, force close the app and restart by clicking the restart button. There is a restart button, or simply restart your watch. And then if you scroll down, you'll see that you can use the phone SHM-Mod Companion 6.5.0 or newer to turn off the battery optimization, restart the app automatically for you, and then an explanation why it is required. So with that being said, I have pushed an update to the SHM-Mod Companion and it does the job. It also does the job of granting all permissions. So if you don't want to go and toggle the permissions one by one, you can do it by pressing the button on your companion and it will push an ADB command and tell your watch to grant all permissions. Now, in addition to that, by default, if you install SHM-Mod using the new companion, it will grant permissions and whitelist SHM-Mod straightforward in one go. That calls for a celebration, yay! Well, yeah and no. I still have small bad news. Well, it's not very bad, but it's still bad news. You see, while I was patching the version 132.025, more updates were released for the watch stock SHM, and I was like, it's okay, I already have the mapping as already right over here, you see it, I already have it, so what could go wrong? So I went ahead to compare the releases, and by the way, this is just comparing the stock previous release with the stock new release, and oh my, well, what can I say? Apparently packages keep changing their names and methods, keep shifting and moving around. As you can see, what once was on the left is no longer on the right, and what is on the right is not on the left. So this calls for new mapping, because my current mapping is not necessarily going to be applied immediately. So every new SHM mod I have to release for the watch will probably be delayed, because it depends on how much has changed and how fast can I map the methods and functions, and that's pretty much it. Alongside this, one of the other obstacles was basically the BP and ECG tiles, and that was a bit of pain to know. You see, the tiles for the BP and ECG right now, if you look at the stock SHM, they're animated. Now if you want to animate tiles, you have to call the tile provider. One, your app has to be a system application, or two, your application is hard-coded. So what was happening is I always had blank tiles, no animation, no picture, no nothing. So I fixed it by simply calling methods to load a static image of the tiles. I tried to make the sizing as close as possible. I have pushed this into SHM mod. We can see it right over here. Top image and top image large. I just push the code which loads that resource and fits nicely for the BPE and ECG tiles. So now we don't have blank tiles. So basically I have reached to beta 8. If you would look right over here, sorry, and here you'd see that I have reached in beta 8 after all this time. And that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. I know this video was very long, but I felt like I owe you an explanation for what is happening and what will happen in the future. Nevertheless, I've already released SHM Mod Companion 6.5.0. You should update to it and expect the release of SHM Mod in 2 days for the sleep apnea. I will also consider creating a new video tutorial for the Wear OS so that it would use 6.5.0, because the current tutorial is kind of using a very old version of the companion, so it's a good idea to create a new tutorial to just highlight a few things in the layout and design. Thank you very much, guys, for watching, and have a good day. Cheers.